everybody. Before we jump into today's episode, we have two sponsors we want to say thank you to for supporting this show. The first one is Routine. You guys have heard me talk about Routine, honestly, back from the early days of the podcast, and it's still a product I use every single morning. They have a prompt for me here. I'm going to do a little impromptu on this ad read today because honestly, this is a product that I truly believe in. And so I'm just going to tell you guys exactly what I think and why. First and foremost, this is a stat that they shared, but when you sleep, you lose between a pound and a half of water. And most of that's just sweating while you sleep. I used to not know if that was actually true, to be honest. I felt like a pound to a pound and a half of water seemed like quite a bit while I slept. But the one thing I did constantly pay attention to when I started using Routine was just the fact that before using Routine, I always felt a little dehydrated in the morning. And I'm one of those people that when I get up really early usually. I work out. One of the first things I do is some form of fitness. It's just like what I do before everyone's awake. And so it's very easy for me to grab a coffee, pre-workout, an energy drink, something with caffeine in it, and just go. When I am good about using Routine, first, I basically they come in these little single serve packets. They contain half an organic lemon, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, Himalayan sea salt, all 6 essential electrolytes, and they have no sugar in them at all. A lot of hydration products are going to have sugar. So one of the things about Routine that I love is that there's no sugar in there. So when I am good about doing this consistently, I will take one of those single serve packets, I'll throw it in my mixer bottle, and whether I also put in a pre-workout or something with caffeine or I just drink that separately, I try to drink that first. And the days I do that, I do genuinely feel hydrated and just have a different form of clarity all morning. A lot of people have tried to make their own homemade versions of Routine, right? You see people they take a shot of the apple cider vinegar, they put a little sea salt, a little lemon in a drink. This is essentially that, but in a product that you can take with you on the go, have it ready for you first thing in the morning. I know me personally, when I'm groggy rolling out of bed, the last thing I want to do is, squeeze a lemon, cut lemons up, go get the apple cider vinegar, find my sea salt. I just rip this packet open, throw it in my water, drink it, and it's good to go. You can try yours today. If you haven't tried it yet and you've been listening to this podcast for years, just try the damn Routine. Give it a shot. You can use code ShaneWhite30 and get 30% off your first order. So you get 30% off by using code ShaneWhite30 and go to yourroutine.com. To make it even easier, I've added the link to yourroutine.com in the show notes. So just click on the show notes for this episode, click on the link to yourroutine.com, and don't forget to use code ShaneWhite30. All right, guys, today's episode is also brought to you by NeuroRoast. Again, I'm going to go a little off script here. NeuroRoast is a product that I also came across during this year of 2023. They are a coffee company that's helping you optimize your brain function and overall well-being. This is another product that, to be honest with you, when I first started working with it, I was a little on the fence. I was like, do I really want to have mushrooms in my coffee? Well, folks, I will tell you, when I use NeuroRoast, one of the things that has stood out to me the most is I'll back up. People that know me know that I have way too much caffeine, typically. One of the things this year I've done a good job of is cutting out alcohol. Not completely, but predominantly, I don't touch a lot of alcohol anymore. What I think I've actually done the other way, though, is add a lot more caffeine. So I do definitely drink too much caffeine. That's something I need to work on next year, is to try to minimize how much of that. But NeuroRoast is something that has actually helped me because of the way they've formulated their coffee. Like, unlike regular coffee, which is, still something I consume, but NeuroRoast specifically doesn't cause jitters or crashes. Mushroom coffee provides more balance and sustained energy, allowing you to stay focused and productive throughout the day. So the times I do use NeuroRoast, I'll be honest, I just don't feel that jittery, like, I'm jumping out of my chair or standing here at my desk jumping around feeling. So give NeuroRoast a try. They have some really good flavors. I'll be honest too, the two guys that started NeuroRoast are just really good dudes based out of New York, and they're hustling, and hopefully they can get some people to try NeuroRoast this holiday season by listening to this podcast. So for you folks who've been on the fence, I'm telling you, it tastes delicious. They've done a fantastic job of making this coffee not only be functional, but taste fantastic. And if you want to try NeuroRoast, you can use code ShaneWhite. So it's super simple, just ShaneWhite at checkout. you'll also get 30% off. So if you go to neuroroast.com, and once again, I have added that to the show notes. So just click into the show notes while you're listening to this episode. You can click on NeuroRoast link directly. Don't forget to use code just Shane White, and you'll get 30% off your order. Hope you guys love both these products. I'm trying to not only bring you guys products that I use, but that I believe in on the podcast. I'm not taking ad reads for any brands that I don't really believe in. So anyway, hope you guys love both those products, yourroutine.com and neuroroast.com. I've added those links to the show notes. I hope you guys love it. And I got an awesome guest coming up right after this. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Shane White Show. I am pumped today to have Sean Hall from Wellious on the podcast. Sean, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Thanks a lot, Shane. Great to be here.
Absolutely. You were one of those people who I feel like I just always saw your content on LinkedIn, funny enough, and I saw the brand, and the brand is a brand that I've just seen around a lot. So it's always fun for me to have someone like you on the podcast because I feel like I've seen your stuff. I've obviously seen the product. But for everyone else who maybe doesn't know who you or the brand is, would you mind giving all the listeners just a little 101 of you and Wellious?
Yeah, for sure. Glad you're seeing my content. You know, I'm only my one post every 2 months. I'm glad that they're making their way around. But yeah, no, I started Wellious. It's kind of born about 3 years ago. I had some personal health stuff come up. Prior to this, I was an entrepreneur already, kind of in the better for you food space. Had built a different packaged food company and a portfolio of media publications around food and wellness that reached a lot of people.
Nice.
But then, yeah, kind of randomly had some health stuff come up, had a few months where felt horrible and just got extra conscious about what I was consuming. And that ended up leading to me realizing my protein powder was filled with all of these horrible ingredients that I was trying to avoid in junk food. And it was kind of like a light bulb moment of just like, I had been in this space for a bit and I had just totally overlooked this. And I think our industry and consumers just totally did, where I think we just assumed that this is a health product, so it's good for us. But really it was, you know, filled with the same harmful ingredients that we're trying to avoid elsewhere. And so, yeah, became just a total nerd about trying to create something better, and did a lot of research and a lot of iteration and a lot of R&D, and ultimately developed Wellious, which is just 4 real food ingredients, none of the additives that are pretty much in everything else. It's plant-based, but has better taste and texture than anything I had tried plant-based. That I had always kind of struggled with whey protein bothering my stomach, but when I tried alternatives, like the taste and texture were so bad that I'd rather just kind of deal with those circumstances. So
Sure.
But so I needed something that there didn't feel like any sacrifice there. So and then there's a lot of functionality from the real food kind of superfood ingredients. Beyond protein, there's fiber and antioxidants and a bunch of vitamins and minerals that support overall wellness. So we definitely sell because we're a super clean, tasty protein powder, but there's also some kind of overall wellness to it as well. And yeah, launched that super bootstrapped, few $1,000s to kind of make the initial inventory, and not that much more money went into it over the first couple of years, and grew really fast, and ultimately grew to, you know, a couple million in sales. Just raised our first bit of capital, and kind of just trying to keep up the demand right now while, you know, thinking about the future as well.
Sure. Geez, there's a lot to unpack there in a good way. That's a ton of phenomenal info for everyone who just jumped right in. The first question, Sean, that comes to mind is I probably was the exact same consumer as you. Like, I feel like I was, especially like high school, definitely college, and then post-college was like, I drank every protein powder that you're probably referring to, and probably had a lot of the same issues and didn't realize or think much of it. I'd be curious, from where you sit, you obviously, something impacted you personally that made you go, like, I always say, like, it's one thing to even identifying the problem, let alone to like making your own product, launching it, making a brand. Whole thing we'll get into. But what would you say is, like, for anyone out there who maybe is that same consumer that was you, or maybe even me, what are some of the things you were noticing? What are like some of the reasons you're like, hey, this just doesn't seem normal that I'm having some of these side effects? Could you share that? Because I think there's probably more guys out there specifically that are trying to just chug protein powder to hit protein numbers that probably don't even realize some of the things they're putting in their body or how they should not feel maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's like it's an age thing too. It doesn't take too long post, college for you to feel like you're aging fast, and just things, physically, nutritionally affect you just so differently. And you realize that feeling good is, until something happens that makes you not feel good, you realize how important it is. My journey is kind of weird. Like the symptoms that I started having that were like really kind of threw me into this health spiral were like unrelated and kind of very random. I just like
Okay.
didn't feel good for a couple months without going too deep into it. But I had always had like gut and stomach issues and things like protein powder. Like I just noticeably had issues with. And again, it's just like, yeah, you deal with it. It is what it is. I would try an alternative once and it didn't taste good. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll deal with it. But through the health stuff I was having going on, like my anxiety was also just spiking, which just made like all my gut issues that much worse. So it really just set this priority of like, okay, I need to just be super mindful and of everything I'm consuming, and just taking kind of health and those core pillars of health more seriously, like nutrition. And so that's when I was kind of paying attention to everything. I'm just like, I'm kind of done with like packaged food junk and all the additives, and then realizing that it was in this product that I was using pretty much daily with the intention of it being healthy. That's where it felt intolerable, because even if you're like, okay, I want to have a Snickers bar for XYZ reason, like, you're not making
Yeah.
a good choice. But like if you just worked out for an hour and a half and then you're having a protein shake, like it's kind of a bummer that you're actually hurting yourself. To get more specific on it, like, and now I'm honestly more, have more expertise on this because I've dove in so far. Most of these products, and geez, it's kind of all packaged food, honestly, but specifically like supplements. A big one is sugar alcohols. That's kind of the sweetener of choice. It makes everything 0 calorie, and you know they're just they ferment slow in the colon and the gut, and create for a lot of people just like cramps and bloating and some of this stuff. But they can also have a lot of long term gastrointestinal issues. Then a lot of the stuff has seed oils in it. Even some of the sugar alcohols too, to back up. Yeah, I've been linked, like there's a Cleveland Clinic study showing that they were kind of linking an increase in colon cancer to some of the sugar alcohols. And
Really?
there was that like crazy case of someone having a stroke that was like linked to sugar alcohols. And I'm not like a
Whoa.
scare tactic person, so like you got to
No, no,
take
no.
this in
Well,
stride. But
you know what's funny? This is totally aside. My sister is a GI fellow at the Cleveland Clinic, so I have to ask her about that after this, because she probably knows exactly what you're talking about. Whenever there's something like gastrointestinal, I just go to her.
yeah, and I think it was, I might be misspeaking, but I think it was erythritol in particular. But
And you would know this? What's the big reason these brands use sugar alcohols? Is it cheap, or is it do something that like what I've never understood? I guess the reasoning why they're using them so
yeah,
widely.
so usually to have like a non-caloric sweetener. And so, obviously, like if you just use cane sugar, you're going to get the sugar content and the calories from sugar content. And so there's several of these alternatives, more natural like monk fruit and stevia, or more kind of lab made like sugar alcohols, that the body doesn't process them as calories, so it's not a sugar or anything, but it does
Right.
create the same sweetness. um,
Got it.
and so
Like
that's
sucralose that's one, right?
yep, exactly,
Okay.
xylitol, these are
I have
popular
an
ones
energy drink on my desk here with sucralose, and I'm
for
like,
sure.
Sean's probably like, put that away.
And it's funny too, this is a side note, but a lot of brands now, which is just annoying, they'll say like sweeten with monk fruit or something. Even monk fruit sweeteners, like when you go buy like a bag of monk fruit sweetener, it's like 0.1% monk fruit and like 99.9% sugar alcohols. And it's just kind of like
Shit, really?
they're just tricking people. But
Whoa.
ultimately, like, yeah, so nutritionally, it looks good on a package, but it's also cheap, like compared to monk fruit, which is what we use. Like, I mean, it's, I'm kind of crazy for not using it. That's how different the price is. Um,
Wow.
but obviously, like you can still make it work. And these sweeteners are all much sweeter than sugar, and so you only need like a tiny, like in a scoop of our protein eggs, like there's that much monk fruit,
Really?
and that sweetens the whole thing. So
Whoa.
it doesn't have a caloric effect regardless, but it also, like, there's such a small amount of it that it's not really affecting people either. So,
Interesting.
you know, like most of these sacrifices made for that food companies do, without regards to how it affects humans, it's price, it's cost, and it's easier, to make it look good. So, and I don't think it's always bad. It's probably one of those things that, like, in moderation, wouldn't really hurt people, but when it starts being in everything, and if you're like a big packaged food consumer, and cans of soda and different stuff like that, and then it's in
Yeah.
everything, it's like, these, and you're someone that's sensitive to it, then it's just going to be a big gut disruptor.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. Wow, I have so many questions, and you sound like you obviously are deep into this. So you set out, then I'm assuming. Tell everyone too, because I feel like any founder I've had on here, part of this story is okay. You're identifying all this. You said you became a nerd and started learning about all of this. What made you jump from just learning about it to actually creating a product? And I'm assuming along the way, did you look to see if there already was product? Were there other proteins out there that could solve your need first? Did you do that?
Yeah, I think that's where it started. It's like there was this problem, and then I was like, pretty much what happened is I ran out of my protein, and I was about to go buy the same one again. I'm like, let me make sure this doesn't have, like, one of the things I'm kind of trying to avoid. And I flipped it over, and it had all of the things. And
Of
so I
course.
was like, huh, that's interesting. And I think from there, I just, like, probably started looking for one that I could feel good about using. And I was just, like, kind of baffled that even the one I was using was actually pretty clean. And I think I had picked it up because it said it was, like, organic, looked like it had a clean label. And so, like, I kind of already thought I was in that spectrum, which I was, but even that one was, like, really far from what I'd want to be using. So then it was like, okay, there really isn't much. There's either I could buy, like, single source protein. I mean, you could buy just, like, pea protein, pure pea protein or something. And as long as, like, if it's third party tests and stuff like that, that'd be a good source of protein. But man, the taste, just absolutely awful. So there wasn't something that I'm like, hey, this looks like it's actually going to taste good, which was a necessity for me and is super clean. And there really wasn't ones that were, like, flavored that were super clean. And, like, the one or two I found, they had, like, yellow pea base was their protein source, and just, like, again, the taste and the texture is just, like, so harsh. I'm like, I just wouldn't drink it. So there wasn't what I was looking for. Then when I started developing it, and that kind of just started as this project of, like, let me try to make something better. I don't know that I thought, like, I'm gonna 100% make this a product, um, because of how hard it was to develop and how deep I had to go. And I realized, like, oh, this is why people use sugar alcohols, because it's 1,000 times
Uh,
cheaper. Oh, this is why
yeah.
people use natural flavors versus, like, we're one of the only ones that uses, like, real cacao and real vanilla. And I'm like, oh, this is why, because it's way easier to just use these flavor houses that, like, send you an ambiguous white powder that tastes like something and don't have to disclose what it's
Sure.
made from. It's cheaper, it's easier, everything. Oh, this is why people use pea protein, from China versus, like, almond protein sourced from the U.S., because it's way cheaper. Um,
Right.
and so it became this thing of, like, from a cost perspective, it was harder. From just, like, a nutritional profile perspective, it was harder. From kind of all elements, like, it was hard to develop, and it wasn't something that was really out there. Like, if I had just gone to a food scientist or like a co-packer and said, I want a vegan protein powder, pretty clean, they would have came back with something totally different. Like, I really had to go figure this out and learn deeply and do a lot of iterations. Because that was so hard, by the time I started to come to, like, more of a final product that could work, I was like, this is pretty special, because I know how hard it
Oh,
was
yeah.
to develop. And now I'm pumped because I have something that actually tastes better than any plant-based protein powder I've tried, and I know how clean it is. And so I'm
Yeah,
like, this
right.
is a true solution for me. I'd feel comfortable with, like, friends and family using this. Um, I think that, like, as I was getting towards the end of that journey, I was like, it makes sense to be in the world. And honestly, the affinity that there's been for the product and the way it's taken off and taken a life of its own even outweighed what I expected from developing that. Like,
Well, the cool thing is too, you've developed something that correct me if I'm wrong. Did you set out to make it genuinely for you in the beginning, or from the beginning were you like, I think this could also be a business? Because it almost seems like if it's the first one, it's kind of cool because then it's like if it takes off and becomes a business, hell yeah, that's awesome. But also if not, it's like, well, Sean just created a product that solves a need that he needed personally anyway, which is,
Yeah.
so it's kind of double cool.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely solved my need, and that's what it stems from. As I was building, like, um, I definitely thought of it as a business and a product, but that's certainly due to the fact that I was just an entrepreneur already. So like
Sure.
everything is a
You're like,
potential business and product.
yeah,
No matter what, especially if it's like starts becoming a problem solution thing. But I'll say that like there wasn't this grand ambition for it. Like it's even gotten further than um, not than like I thought was possible, but then like it just wasn't the purpose. I wasn't like studying things like how big is the TAM, the total addressable market for this. Like I wasn't like how, it just wasn't thought about that deeply in a like
it wasn't like you put a business case together as you were building this out. It wasn't, yeah, it wasn't like you put like a whole business plan and you were trying to put a pitch deck together to go raise capital behind this
yeah,
to start.
yeah, for sure.
Which is cool. I mean, I always think those stories are the best ones. Those are stories where you're. It's cool too because I'm sure you know tons of these folks in the industry. It's like the one easier way would have been to just try to house out a lot of the R&D. I always find the most interesting entrepreneurs that I've ever gotten to meet on here and work with are the ones that like they've been a part of the creation of the product. Maybe that's not the role forever, but like in the early days, like they were actually the ones mixing things in their kitchen, and they were kind of, the ones in the nitty gritty trying to make it to what it became as a sellable product. I think I almost feel like you have to do that in CPG. Like if you skip that part, you kind of miss, I would argue, and I'm saying this as someone who's never launched their own, CPG food product, but it seems like that's an important part because it helps you. Like you said, you had to learn so much about sugar alcohols that you probably wouldn't have if you just went to a flavor house and tried to like get something created.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is really important to me and for me. It's definitely, there's all different routes to success for sure. And I, have a lot of friends who like, they just had an idea and worked with a food scientist. And that certainly works out. And, zero shade to anyone that does anything like
Sure.
that. Cause
Yeah.
I get just being the like nerd.
I would probably have to do that.
But for me, like yeah, I have to be deep in it.
Okay.
And I appreciate that because I think it gives your business a lot of like soul. Like I think it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this product was started for a reason, and it was like me and my learnings that like, made it become a tangible thing. Even on the brand side, like I did the brand, and it's like, I don't know if it's the best brand ever. I'm sure it'll evolve over time, but like it just came
Good.
from a person. It's not
Yeah.
just like these pieces of here's a food scientist that developed this thing, and here's a branding agency that did 100 different brands, and there's that, and like here's this person that set up, or like I think there's a real human singular element into it, and that I would say there's some element of that of like why it's resonated with people, because there's like a lot of intention, I think, behind it, and like true care.
That's really cool. I didn't know. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't have known before now that you created the packaging. How did you do that? I'm very impressed with your packaging. Like that was one of the things that I definitely gravitated towards when I first saw it for the first time.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's definitely, it has been more of a propeller, than the converse. But yeah, I mean, I have like, a decent design like skill set to enough. People are a million times better, but I think, yeah, I just started like I was excited to kind of try to build what that could look like. I knew that I wanted it to look different than what was out there. I think
Sure.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
originally had an original design that was much more like cleaner, simple, like maybe more along the lines of like, an RX bar of protein powder type of thing, just like plain
Oh
color
yeah.
and stuff. And then I had like this kind of design going where I was like using this mid-century like modern art and color palette that I was kind of drawn to. And I was like kind of messing with that, but that was almost like, hey, this is like real different and alternative. But then I just like kept coming back to that. Like I want this to speak in a different way to people. And yeah, ultimately ended up like kind of, constantly tweaking that, and it's changed over time too. But and then when like I mocked it up on like Photoshop onto a packaging, I'm like, it looks pretty cool. And when I'd show people, they're like, I really like this. And so then it just kind of stuck.
Hell yeah. No, I like that. It's definitely a blend of like it's something that stands out on shelf, but online, like I would argue there's brands that I see all the time that either one or the other, they have a way of standing out online or in store. Yours I think blends the two really, really well. Just my own take. Um so really cool. So you get this product ready to go. How did you go about originally like sharing it with folks? Did this start with like friends, family? Did you launch the website? Like where did you kind of start off with selling Wellious?
Yeah. So did I think when we launched, it was just a website, built it out, had the chocolate vanilla, two SKUs, super simple. I, I it was everything was kind of like ready to go, and I had made like the first 50 units or something. And so I kind of just wanted to like get the Instagram going. And so I did an Instagram post, to 0 followers on that channel, but then like probably shared the post, on my own personal story to my very minimal amount of, you know, followers that are just like friends.
Sure. Yeah.
And honestly, I expected nothing. I thought like, a couple of my friends would be cool. This is what you're working on. Maybe someone buys it out of support. And then I thought like, I'm gonna have a couple months to like, I kind of wanted to get dialed in with a co-packer and just like figure out some things, honestly, from a production infrastructure side. But it was like kind of instant that like, I don't know, a couple dozen people went and bought it. And obviously these were people that were like 1 degree of separation and had like a reason to, but I've also like launched enough things and seen enough things that like people just don't go pay $30 for something they're not interested
Yeah.
in. I wasn't like asking anyone to, but they were like, oh, like I've been looking for a protein powder or I'm sick of mine or etc. And so people bought it really fast. And then like the feedback loop was just like really instant where it was like within a couple of days, like, holy crap, this is good. They were telling other people they were buying more. I had people that like loaded up on, I had told them I didn't have much. They like loaded up on like 10 bags. And then with like
Wow.
two weeks, we had people that, I'd never seen before buying it. And so it was one of these like, I really hadn't done much, and this wasn't a lot of sales, but it was enough where you're like, oh, this is resonating in a certain way. This is like real signs of product market fit. Um, and then from there, I mean, yeah, I was always behind the ball from a supply to demand standpoint, and trying to get dialed in, and then never had a lot of cash, so I was always trying to buy more inventory, before we even getting paid back, etc. It, um, yeah, we honestly for a long time, and I mean even still, most of our traction has been very organic. And so from there, from like posts on Instagram, started to be like TikTok posts that did well. And that's evolved over time. We've had viral videos and stuff that's, really
Very
amplified.
cool. Yeah.
And then a lot of gifting. Like I just like started reaching out to people that I thought were cool that I'd follow along with for a long time. And like a surprising percentage of them were like, yeah, this looks cool. I'll try it. Um,
Oh, wow.
and then a surprising percent of them, liked it enough where they like wanted to post about it and share it. And
So this would be like an influencer or someone you just follow that you send them free product. They actually just love it organically, and they're like, "I'll post this because this is awesome."
yeah, honestly,
Wow.
that's really the foundation of what like took us to the next level at a scale. Like, to 6 figures a month is a lot of very like, I mean, I'm talking 10 million plus follower people who
Good for you,
usually
because
get paid.
that in today's world is tough.
Yeah.
I would assume. I mean, again, I'm not sitting in your shoes, but I feel like there's so many influencers that are getting paid decent money from so many brands. It seems like that must be a hard. Like you genuinely have to have an amazing product for that to happen. I would assume.
Yeah, you do, because there's no other explanation for it. And I mean, fortunately, I guess, but really just the reality was like I didn't have any budget, so it was just like, hey, I could send this to you, it's super cool that I'm even getting to send it. I have zero expectation at all. I
Yeah.
would be like shocked when they would post it. And I think that they just fell in love with the product where it was like, hey, I get paid for other stuff, like this one I want to share. I think some of those I took the time to like build a relationship where they're like, hey, this is truly, I get why I'm not getting paid $30,000 from this company, like they're a small
Yeah.
business, founder led, whatever. And so like I think there's extra affinity on that end. But yeah, it was really, still to this day, like that's a big propeller, and it's cool to see, and it's definitely a result of just like not having the budget, because I'd love to pay these people more. But it's also like, aligns with everything that's happened where it's just like, okay, people genuinely like this, and we're just sharing it.
That's. I would love to like double click into this whole component of bootstrapping. It's one of the things I love to talk about on here, Sean. And I don't know if you knew because you referenced them. It'd be funny, but like when I kicked this off, the CPG company I was working at was RX Bar, so I was there back in the day. Um, and I always love bringing this up because whenever I hear those words, I honestly, you don't hear it as much anymore as you used to, even when I started this, 5 years ago. RX Bar was bootstrapped. And so that's like when I first got into food and beverage, that was like the first experience I had. So it was funny. Like when I left RX Bar, I just assumed everyone bootstrapped. I'm like, everyone makes a protein bar in their kitchen and sells 12. They take that and they take the revenue and the profit from that to make their next two box. Like I just assumed that's everyone did it. And then I started this podcast and quickly realized like, oh, that's not at all common. So very cool that you did that. What can you explain to everyone listening? Like how much did you start with? How did you try to fund that? Because I think for a lot of folks in and even CPG today, I would argue that there's definitely a narrative that you have to like go raise capital immediately. The only way to scale is to raise more money from outside investment. I don't know. I'm not a big believer that that's the only way. There's no way. I don't think in today's environment you have to do that. So we'd love to just get your take on it because I think it's a powerful one for people listening.
For sure. Yeah, I think I have a lot of thoughts around it. I think that one, when I started, I think I thought like, yeah, most people do it this way. You use what resources you have and you go try to prove if it works before you invest more and you do what you can. And, it's a big thing to, even if you have a network of people with capital, which most people don't, but if you do, like, even for me, if I had the opportunity, I wouldn't have always felt right asking for it till it was like capital is purely just the delta between where we're trying to go. But I think that it's
No, you're good. You're good. What were your early thoughts on bootstrapping? Like, I guess the question probably to reframe it for you, Sean. Did you have a set amount of money that you were like, hey, I'm just gonna put this amount of money to work and see what happens? Did you at least start there? Was there like a dollar figure you were like, hey, I can afford to run with this much?
yeah, I mean the truth is that it was very small amount. Like it was $3,000 was like what my raw ingredients were going to cost me for the first run of um, I guess that was, I don't know, to make a couple hundred bags worth probably. And
Okay.
so that was like, do I want to throw $3,000 against this, which is nothing to start a business, but that was really it. And because I did the branding and I built the website and all this stuff, like there really wasn't much other cost. There was an LLC and like, some insurance and basic stuff. But it was like, that was, like 3,500 was probably like the all-in budget of launching it. And then it's like, we sold that really quick and it was online. So we make that money back. And that's kind of what got reinvested over time as we went through like fast growth periods. It would be like, okay, I need to place an order, a PO that's, 3x as big as the last one. We've barely started getting paid back from that last run because of lead times, et cetera. And so it'd be like, okay, I need, to put another like $15,000 in from savings just to like float us for a couple weeks. Did that a few times. And that was really kind of all the cash that had gone into the business till, just recently, like I said, this quarter or last quarter, whatever, raised our first bit of money, but because we had kind of got way further than you should have with no money. Cause I think that's a nuance with bootstrapping. It can mean so many different things. It could be,
exactly.
you started with $3,000 or you started with $200,000 or you took some friends and family money. There's a wide kind of range of what exactly that means, or you have a big, like we never even had credit lines really, like you could have a big credit line and that could be really helpful if it's just purely an inventory thing. But yeah, I think bootstrapping, I think on my earlier point, what I was going to say is that, I thought everyone did it. Then I've come to realize that most of the brands you see growing rapidly who are like, the brand's kind of making a splash, like maybe you see them on LinkedIn and you see the press and you see the influencers and that kind of stuff. And we've kind of got thrown in that bucket sometimes of like this like cool emerging brand, but we're kind of a rarity in that we didn't raise money. I think most of my friends who are in that same circle have raised money and a lot of times a lot of money.
Sure. Yeah.
But then I'm also like, and so for a little bit it felt like, oh no, everybody's raised money and I'm a freaking
You're like, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah. And I think to agree.
Did that cross your mind? Did that cross your mind at some point where you're like, am I doing something wrong by not raising money?
I think it's interesting when you see at times I would be having similar results to other companies where like we're growing just as fast and we're having all these brand wins, but like I'm doing it as a team of one with $0 and they're doing it as a team of four with, you know, millions of dollars in the bank. And so I would just think like I'm not properly resourced to like compete. It's either like, you know, if I can do this with nothing, what could I do if I actually had a little bit of resources to direct into this? It's also like, honestly, you're just the way I was doing it, you're one mistake away or just like unfortunate thing happening away from like the business imploding. I think that was a big motivator to raise money is like, hey, this is going really well. We have all the important things in place. But like if I have a production run go really wrong and like it's a $200,000 loss, like we're done. Whereas if you have
Yeah,
a million
right.
and a half dollars in the bank, like that sucks, but like you still have $1.3 million in the bank.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so like, you know, for a company like ours where the fundamentals were so sound and there was a real business being built, um, you know, it'd be a shame to lose momentum or die completely just because you know, you don't have any funding.
And I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, when you build a business like you did with the fundamentals kind of buttoned up the way you're describing it, I would assume the other narrative, you know, I would argue probably over the last 2 or 3 years now, it's been longer than I realized. The narrative around how hard it's been to fundraise, I've always, this is just from my perch where I talk to founders and I work with founders within my agency. I've always thought it's just a numbers game where there's so many brands now that are trying to raise money, and a lot of them probably don't have the fundamentals buttoned up. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I would assume if you had yours buttoned up, it actually probably made it a little bit easier to go raise money. I could be wrong, but my assumption would be like, oh, that's a kind of a rarity where investors or angels come across a brand like yours where, hey, these guys bootstrapped, fundamentals are great, and like if that's the reason you're coming to me to raise capital, I'd be like, oh, where can I sign the check? That seems like a phenomenal reason to give you cash.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and it goes back to the bootstrapping conversation at large, which you know, even though it seems like oh no, everyone is raising money, there's still like I'm in these CPG groups with what probably represents 99 point whatever percent of people that you know most people are bootstrapping. It's just like again, you don't hear about those companies as much. They usually don't have the explosive growth. But it's like most people do kind of like work with what they got and you know build one step at a time. And for them, it's really hard to find funding. I think that it's rare whether the company has had money since before they even launched or has been bootstrapped to have like a strong P&L as an early stage brand, especially if you're growing fast. And so we were like very unique case scenario where it's like, okay, you have the metrics of almost this venture backed company, but you've done it with nothing. And you know your months are profitable, and so
Did
again,
you find that out? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to ask. Sorry, did you get into like did you find that out as you were going through the process of trying to raise, or was it kind of like a, oh wow, like our P&L is way better than what investors are expecting to see, or did you know that from talking to people beforehand?
yeah, not by the time I was actually raising, but like leading up to it, yeah, I think that's again a shock because I'm just like for me there was no other option. Like
Yeah,
I
no, this
couldn't
is so
have
cool.
3 months in a row where we lose 17 grand, which is like nothing compared to what most people are doing. Like a lot of my friends are losing 150 grand a month, and like
It just gives me heartburn just sitting thinking about it. Even though I know that's like a normal thing for a lot of brands today, it just gives me heartburn.
yeah, I'm like yeah, same. It's painful to me. Even the idea of losing 17 grand a month is painful, but it also wasn't possible. Like we couldn't lose $51,000 because there wasn't $51,000 just like of cash to be invested, and
Yeah.
or like that's like all the profit we had made, and like so it just um, you know wasn't really a possibility. And so I thought, yeah, like this is what you need to do. I think it's been eye opening talking to people and like founders were all so tight and like people will really be very transparent. One, seeing how much early stage brands lose a month, a
Yeah.
year, and then how normal it is. And those companies get backed and get a lot of money poured into them, even with those losses. And then even my bootstrap friends, like the fact that they're like 180 grand in the hole in their business. Like they've had, $180,000 loss, and it's like that's their personal savings, or like theirs and like some family money or something. Um, and like, yeah, people are out here. I couldn't operate. Like if I lost, a few months like that, I'd be like, I gotta do something. I need to go get a job for a bit. I don't like
Yeah.
have it in
Yeah. I'm
me
with
to like
you.
bet the farm, but a lot of people make those crazy sacrifices. Um, and so for me too, it's like, I think that's why it's obviously a lot of effort to ensure that doesn't happen and wearing a lot of hats yourself, but it's also those intangibles of like product market fit and just being like, am I forcing this to be a thing, or is it like, should this be a thing? And those are important, like questions to be honest with yourself about.
No, I love that take because it's I also wonder if some of that is this like growth at all costs mentality, which honestly I feel like from where I sit and the brands I talk to, sometimes I wonder if that comes about once you start bringing on capital. Because obviously now you have a bunch of mouths to feed. You have a lot of people that they gave you money, they're expecting a high return, so they're going to start. They don't want to see you just. I don't even want to say coast, but they don't want you to even just stay in the channels you're in. There was a brand I worked with back in the day, one of the first brands we ever worked with my agency, and I always looked at them as an interesting use case because they had a very strong D2C business and they really weren't trying to grow anywhere else. There's risks that come with that, and they were trying to diversify in a few key areas. But it always makes me question whenever I see brands losing a ton of money and they're trying to raise a ton of capital. It's like not every single brand can do well in every single retailer and be, you know what I mean? Like, and I know that's what everyone's goal is, but ultimately it's just impossible. It's just not gonna. I mean, obviously that's why there's winners and losers, but it's curious to think if you and let me just say this out loud while I'm thinking about it. It's like the money it would take for you to maybe go into the next retailer, whether that's slotting, marketing dollars, end caps, free fills, all those fixed expenses that you have to ultimately pay to get in there. If you just stayed in some channels that are working well and just poured more fuel on the fire, I'm sure that's stuff you think about all the time. But I just have never owned a brand. I've just worked with them, and I think about it a lot when I talk to our brands because, man, it's such a dichotomy sometimes. It's like especially if you bring on capital and you think about growing into the next big retailer, but it's like you also could just keep pushing really hard. You haven't hit the ceiling in the channels that are working and creating profit over here. Do you think about that a lot as a founder and someone who's you probably have lots of opportunities to potentially get into new locations or channels?
Yeah, for sure. And it's a hard puzzle to solve because inherently also like entrepreneurs, we're just like not super focused people. Like we're
Sure.
excited by things. And so like you have that person, but the best thing they could do is stay super focused. I think it's almost never like SKU expansion or channel expansion or any of this that's like what's holding you back from getting to the next level, because those things aren't like, those things are really most important at like, tens of millions of dollars in sales. And then maybe if you're hitting like a little bit of a ceiling, it's like, okay, now we need more products or more channels. Um, but a lot of people try to do that stuff when they're much, much earlier on. And it's like finding new customers is your problem, or true product market fit is your problem, or, having enough like cash to be able to scale or whatever. Um, it's not just more stuff. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think it's tough. I'm always trying to think of it. I'm always trying to talk to myself to say, hey, focus here. It's been like my philosophy since launching, but you kind of have to constantly remind yourself of that. Um, yeah, I think on like to the original point of venture and expectations, I think it's like, I wouldn't say have, I don't know, it's a popular opinion to have empathy for venture capitalists, but it's more just like put yourself in their shoes of like, I think as founders we want the validation of these venture funds being interested in us, and you see another brand get it, and maybe the founders in the product, and you think yours is just as good, and so it's like, why didn't I get the great funding and whatever? But it's like, make sure that's what you actually want, those people's
Yeah.
job, the fund that put money into us, like they raised a $110 million fund, aren't looking for a brand to go from 2 million to, 10 million and cap out there and, not be able to sell because you can't really sell at 10 million, or to sell for $20 million. They own 10% and get $2 million back. Like, it's just not the business they're in. So it's
Yeah.
like they're
Good
looking
call.
for people where the goal alignment is this can and should, and the founder wants it to be big. And so then it's, hey, that is the goal. No one's really happy unless you get to at least X, Y, Z. And it's really important to have those honest conversations with yourself, with them, of like, where is that? And I can tell you, I was talking to multiple funds where some of them, I think it was a little more growth at all costs type of things. Whereas like I worked with people who was aligned with me, which is, of course, I want to grow this thing, and I think it should be bigger, and it's like clear signs that it could be much bigger, but not at its growth. And then take the second part out, like it's not at all costs. It's a growth where it makes sense, where it's smart, where we're meeting demand that's already there, because you can buy as much momentum as you want, and then it just doesn't back out. It's very different than earned momentum and actually growing because consumers love your product and there's a ton more market to capture, versus just spending a lot of dollars for the short term vanity metrics that just gamify the whole thing and get you to the next level.
Yeah, that's a great explanation of that. It is funny how I think there's probably a narrative around all of us when we talk about this topic where there's not a lot of empathy for the folks who are actually doing the investing, which they could find a million other things to do with their time if it wasn't, if there wasn't an incentive for them to do it. So I think that's a really, really good point, Sean.
And it's honestly, it's even a selfish take, because it's what's good for you too. Like if you're not putting yourself in their shoes, and again, you're just doing it because it's going to be flashy, or you think they're the unlock to whatever. It's like that's not going to work out for you if like deep down this business isn't supposed to be that big, and you don't want to you know press those levers and grow fast and try to build that kind of thing. Like if you're
Very
not
true.
ready for that, if the business isn't supposed to do that, like you're just kind of setting the whole thing up for failure.
That's so true. I mean, to take that to the next level, what do you think? Obviously, where you are, I don't expect this question for you to have all the answers, right? But what do you think the next 5 years looks like for Wellious? What is 10 years from now? Like, is the hope that you would scale this to a point that there's an exit, or is there an outcome where you could run this as a quote unquote family business and the folks that invested, get profit share or something? Or like, how are you thinking about it? What are your big aspirations where you sit today?
Yeah, I think it's two parts. I think the first part, like I share with people when they ask me a similar question. I think of, um, the goal is optionality, and I think optionality is a byproduct of a really great business. And so I'm always, my North Star at all stages of revenue scale is having a truly great business with, again, that like really, even if you don't have a profitable bottom line, it's the potential to have it, the next month. It's like, okay, if we just cut back on this rapid growth spend, then we have profitability because we have this crazy base of repeat customers, and like that's all just pure profit, and we have the right margins, et cetera. And so I'm always trying to build just the the core of what makes that, which I think is like constantly trying to improve the product, constantly trying to improve the user experience, constantly trying to make it an operationally more efficient business, being the best at creating awareness and demand, and just doing that as much as we can at all levels. And I think that, if you do that, the result of that is a great business, and a great business, especially at all different, financial levels, has these options to either raise more money if you want to take it to the next level, at a certain point, to sell and exit, if the market's horrible or whatever, or you can sustain the business. You're not relying on a lucky exit, and you're not reliant on a cash funnel. You have a good business, but those things can be tools for what you want. And I think like, that's the goal on all fronts, because I'd be most proud of that business. That's the kind of business I want to operate. But then having that optionality lets me decide what I actually want in the moment. I'd say on more like, do you exit? Do you have a family business? I really love the like 0 to 1 thing. Whether that's 0 to 1 unit sold or 0 to 1 million or, zero, 1 to 10 million, 10 to 100, like all of that feels very entrepreneurial to me. I've built small businesses that are profitable. So I've been like excited about this next challenge of like, let's go build $100 million business. And it doesn't come from I need hundreds of millions of dollars. I could care less. It's like the creative challenge of that sounds really exciting for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's what drives me. But I think if it got to the point where you told me like, okay, now it's in a good place and you're just going to kind of run this as a big corporation for the next 30 years, I'd be like, that sounds awful.
Sure. Yeah, like
And
2% growth rate this year kind of stuff.
yeah, and I don't need my great grandkids to be billionaires. I'm fine if they start from nothing, have to work. I don't have the strong desire for multi generations to be rich without earning it. So I'm more like, personally, it would be cool to be in a position where we're super proud of what we built, and then we can have a cool outcome, and then I can go on a new creative journey. Is how I think about it today.
That's awesome. I mean, the thing I'm going to take away from this convo today and what you basically pinned on there that I honestly don't know if I've maybe one or two times on this podcast, and I'm almost to 300 episodes with founders. So I think building a good business as the foundation, that's remarkably not talked about enough. So hats off to you, Sean. I think it's funny. Like sometimes, I don't know if it's just food and beverage in general, but I feel like that is a metric which is the North Star metric that is so easily forgotten. My background's been in finance. So every role I've ever had anywhere, I feel like I'm always the one talking about the bottom line and profitability and scaling profitably. So it's music to my ears to hear that you're building it that way. Cause you're right. It does. I wrote down optionality. That's what I was writing. Cause it's a good word to just keep in mind as you're building a business. It gives you the power to kind of go in any direction you want. Whereas a lot of brands that raise a ton of money or go in one direction too hard, you're right. You completely lose the optionality, and then you're stuck down this one path, which maybe isn't the path that you really want to take.
And I think you do have to gamify the whole thing in a sense, but I think people gamify it and make it a puzzle in the wrong way, where like they think the end of that puzzle looks like, exit, and parts of it are like raise this, and it really is like the puzzle you're trying to build is great business, which is like there's hundreds of thousands of people obsessed with your product who buy it over and over, and your margin profile and the operations you built make sense as a business, and your brand is meaningful to people, and like if you build that, it has value. It doesn't really matter if you time the market perfect or if it's a hot market for acquisition, or there's tons of money pouring in. Like that has value, and then you can decide what you want to do with it. And if you time it right with whatever, then really amazing outcome. If you time it wrong just accidentally and it's the worst economic time ever, like you still have a good business. I think people are trying to gamify it, and it's hard because that's the harder. It's easier to think about it just like I gotta hit this KPI, and then that lets me get money, and then once I get to this KPI, then I can sell. I think that's a little easier than just being like how to make this product better and better and better, and the user experience better and better and better, and create a true marketing moat. That's probably the harder, deeper work, but I think it's more meaningful, feels good at every stage, and ultimately gives you that optionality that like you're probably after.
Totally. I 100% agree. I think one of the things that actually cemented it for me too, it was probably unfair that the first CPG company I ever worked at was RX Bar. And so like I joined there, they sell. It was not until I left and started Noble Partners, the agency that I run, that I first went to Expo West. And I remember making the correlation as I walked into the number of brands that are there and the number of exits I hear about in a year. And so I say all that to say, not that that shouldn't be everyone's dream that's there. Certainly that can be everyone's dream that's there. But the reality is, if you don't have a fundamentally good business, the likelihood of you making it all the way to that day of huge news of that exit,
But yeah,
so small.
Yeah, and
So
you're a math guy, so statistically, it's almost not going to happen to to any
small.
of us. And so it's like that's for me too. It's like you're either trying to get really lucky, or the more clear path is like not getting lucky and building something, and that takes longer term thinking and it takes discipline and sacrifice, and you can't try to just fit an investment story. And it's just hard. And like even me, who has the right, I think maybe mindset around it and intention, and it's going to work their butt off. There's still probably 99% chance that we don't make it there. So
Yeah,
uh,
you know what though? I think the way you're going about it is going to separate you drastically. Everything from how much money you probably will have to bring on, honestly, to unlock doors if that's your plan, all the way down to having the buttoned up P&L is going to allow you to say no to a lot of things that I think, man, I don't know. Unfortunately, I think that's probably what bites a lot of brands too, is they feel like they have to say yes to things, even though it doesn't financially make the most sense in the world, just because they either A, have to hit growth targets, or B, a variety of things, but they say yes to too much. I genuinely think some of the most successful brands I've worked with, I realized like a similarity across all of them was they said no a lot more than you would externally realize. Whether that was when they launched in a retailer, pricing they agreed to, marketing dollars they agreed to, like they said no actually a lot. And I think that's probably something, again, I'm just guessing, but like if you're selling a product and you get the opportunity to be in a big retailer and you're there, you can sign it and you're good to go. And maybe the pricing's lower than you thought, margins are tighter than you were expecting, but you're going to be at Target or Walmart or wherever. I could see that'd be fucking hard. It'd be hard to say no to.
yeah, right.
But it's also your business. So
Yeah.
I know we're out of time. Last question, Sean, I love to ask, and I'm excited to hear what you say for this one. The last question is just around getting shit done, how you set goals, how you achieve them, and really the tools you use, whether it's personal goals, business goals, all the way down to like, what does Sean have to get done today for Wellious? What tools do you put around you? Are you a pen and paper guy, planner? Do you have apps? What do you use to plan your day and get shit done?
Yeah, there's a lot of chaos going on in this mind. So um, I, I I have to get that out onto something. Um, One that it comes in all forms. I have a planner, which is like I do quarterly goals, then it comes to monthly goals, then weekly goals, and then my day to day, kind of accomplishing that. And I like the writing of that. I used to probably write more. Like I used to have a secondary notebook that I was kind of writing in a lot. I don't do that as much. Then that moved to like these are just for like thoughts and to-do lists and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
strategies and stuff. I would start doing like Word documents, and then I just had like so many. Now I use a whiteboard, and it's honestly just Canva whiteboard, to kind of do that like
Oh,
stream of
cool.
thought stuff where I throw a sticky note up, and it's anything I'm thinking about, and it could be a very
I didn't know it
straightforward
was a
check.
thing. So Canva, like just the website, has
Yep,
a whiteboard feature.
yep,
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
And mine is gnarly. I mean, when I zoom out, it's like I've been using it for maybe 6 months, and you don't want to know how many notes are on there.
Whoa, that's cool
But
though.
for someone like me, it's really helpful because some of it is just like I make the same note over and over again, probably. And it's just like, hey, I need to get this out of my mind and be like, realize where I'm at with XYZ.
Yeah,
So some of it's just kind of therapeutic and it can all go there and not like really worry about like, feel like I'm going through paper or like have a ton of Word docs.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then some of it's very much like, okay, I'm referring to this every day for the next month to make sure I'm on track. So that's been really helpful. And then like for more, honestly, like I've realized recently at the level we've gotten to and how fast we're growing that I need more tools and software for the ops side. And so I've been working on a lot of that stuff. Otherwise, like it just lives in like Google Sheets. It's just a lot of spreadsheets tracking, everything and little formulas I've built out to like, do anything from inventory to cost to et cetera. But it feels at this point a little disjointed and unorganized, and so there's some tools that I realize now I'm like, oh, this would have made my life a million times easier, using this a year ago.
Sure.
So bring that all together. But I think it's common for founders, like we always crave like this like time where it's just going to feel everything's going to feel organized and like smooth. And like I've never talked to any founder that that feels that way. It's just at different levels. You do need more organization. But
Yeah.
it's like there's just a lot, and you're responsible for all of it.
Absolutely. I'm laughing because I'm sitting here and I have like fucking, if you can see all these like 3 different, I have a planner and then I do use like a pocket notebook thing too. I'm with you, man. It's there is something weird about writing it down. I can't
Certain
put my
things
finger
have
on
to,
it.
for sure.
Yeah. It's just like, it definitely makes a difference. I'm going to check out the Canva whiteboard thing though. That's a cool idea. I didn't know that was a thing. So thanks for the tip there. Awesome, Sean. Well, very last thing, just people that want to try Wellious, people that want to follow you and see what you're posting on LinkedIn, all that fun stuff. I'll add your LinkedIn link, but how can people find you? How can people find the brand? And ultimately, how can people try the brand? What's the best place to find the product?
Yeah. I mean, if you Google Wellious, you'll end up either on our site or Amazon. You can search Wellious, Wellious on Amazon. Wellious.co is our website. Most of our social handles, TikTok, Instagram, et cetera, are at wellious.co. For me personally, LinkedIn, if you look up Sean Hall Wellious, hopefully I'm the person that pops up there. But yeah, no, really appreciate you having me on, Shane. Awesome questions and super easy to talk to you. So appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time. It was a pleasure getting to hear your story. Honestly, this was one of my favorite conversations I've had. This was really, really cool. And especially just getting to hear the way you've thought about the business. I genuinely think that you're a rarity. I just don't hear it enough. So bravo to you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time, man.